All right, today we are diving into a topic that sits right at the intersection of faith and science. We're going to explore a really big question. What is the actual power of prayer when it comes to our health?
For so many of us, getting a serious diagnosis isn't just a physical battle. It's a huge emotional and spiritual one too. And it brings up this universal question. When your health is really on the line, where do you turn for strength?
And that feeling, right there, that despair and insecurity, that's often the exact moment when people turn to their faith. It's when we feel most vulnerable that prayer can feel like an absolute lifeline. So to really understand its power, we've got to start from the inside out.
Okay, so to get a handle on the role of prayer, first we have to explore the internal landscape where it all happens. The world of spirituality, religion, and faith.
It's really helpful to draw a little distinction here. Spirituality is often seen as this very personal, individual journey, right? It's your search for meaning and a connection to something bigger. Religiosity, on the other hand, usually involves a shared system of beliefs and practices, often within an organized group. They're definitely related, but they're not quite the same thing.
And at the heart of both of those is faith. You can almost think of faith as the engine. It's that deep personal conviction that can bring so much comfort. It can totally transform how someone views their illness, giving them hope right when they feel the most fragile.
So, how does that inner faith actually turn into action? Well, that brings us to prayer itself and the incredibly powerful role it plays as a coping mechanism.
Prayer is often way more than just asking for stuff. In a lot of traditions, it's this really rich practice that includes adoration and praise, giving thanks, confession, asking for personal help, which is called supplication, and of course praying for other people, which we know as intercession.
And by doing this, people often find these profound psychological benefits. Seriously, prayer can act like a shield, giving you emotional support. It can be a wellspring of hope, helping you find meaning even in suffering. It really becomes a kind of compass, a key strategy for navigating what can be an incredibly scary and vulnerable time.
So we've seen the powerful psychological effects, right? But this brings us to a really fascinating question. Can we actually see what's happening inside our brains when we pray? Is it something we can measure?
Let's zoom right in on the neuroscience here. We're going to shift from that psychological experience to the physical, biological changes that scientists have actually seen in the brain during prayer.
It turns out, neural imaging studies show that prayer is an intensely active state for your brain. It literally lights up the frontal lobes, which is our hub for focus and concentration. It also gets the parietal lobe going, which helps us feel oriented, and the limbic system, which is basically our brain's emotional command center. So this is not a passive activity at all. It's a full-on brain workout.
And it's not just about which parts of the brain are firing. It's about the chemicals they're releasing. The act of prayer has been shown to lower our levels of cortisol, the body's main stress hormone. And at the same time, it can boost dopamine and serotonin, the exact neurotransmitters that make us feel good, happy, and content. This gives us a really clear biological reason for that deep sense of peace so many people talk about.
As neuroscientist Dr. Fabiano Diabreu Agrela puts it, prayer can be like a form of meditation. And when you do it regularly, it doesn't just change your mood for a moment. It actually has the potential to physically rewire your brain structure over time. Pretty incredible.
Okay, so the evidence is pretty compelling for the person who is doing the praying. But this leads us to the biggest and maybe the most controversial question of all. Can one person's prayer actually change the physical health of somebody else? To answer that, we have to look way beyond a single brain and into some massive clinical trials.
To get to the bottom of that question, we have to move from neuroscience into the world of large-scale clinical evidence. Researchers have done these really rigorous randomized controlled trials to see if what they call intercessory prayer has any measurable effect.
And these were not small studies, believe me. One huge meta-analysis, that's a study of other studies, pulled together data from 10 different trials. In total, they looked at the health outcomes of over 7,500 patients. So when all that data was pooled together and analyzed, the results were pretty clear. For the patients who were being prayed for by others, there was just no statistically significant difference in major health outcomes. We're talking death, general clinical state, or even rates of rehospitalization, compared to the patients who weren't. And the definitive conclusion from this massive scientific review was, basically, that the evidence just doesn't support a clinical recommendation for intercessory prayer. So from a purely scientific point of view, the case for it changing external health outcomes, well, it's still unproven.
So this leaves us with this really fascinating tension, doesn't it? Because on one hand, we have the internal experience of the person who prays, which we've now seen is psychologically powerful and neurologically real. And yet, on the other hand, we have this external clinical evidence, which, according to some of the biggest scientific reviews out there, remains uncertain. So that brings us to the big question. What does it all mean? How do we reconcile these two realities? The profound measurable effects happening inside versus the inconclusive data we see on the outside.
Well, when we put all the pieces together, a pretty clear picture starts to emerge, one where science and personal experience actually line up. The most well-documented, scientifically verifiable power of prayer seems to be its incredible impact on the person who is actually praying. It offers them psychological comfort and creates real, measurable, positive changes in their own brain.
And that leaves us with one final thought to consider. Maybe, just maybe, the true purpose of prayer was never about changing our external circumstances, but about giving us the strength and the peace to change ourselves.